Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pitchside Podcast channel and the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, most importantly, always subscribe to the channel, of course. Enable notifications to receive the updates of this episode and other content here on the channel side PSP. Find me there on Twitter, PitchsidePod on Instagram. Also, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform, or catch it later at www.webreathesports.com. It's Friday, so it's the weekend, so you know what that means. It's a preview of the matches upcoming in European top football, but not before really a quick news roundup, which is going to be mixed pretty much with what happened on yesterday in terms of actual footballing action. And we're starting from Spain, and in the Super Cup it was Real Madrid versus Athletic Bilbao. Raul Garcia scoring twice as Bilbao scored a rare 2-1 victory over the holders Real Madrid. They set up a Super Copa de España finale with Barcelona. They will meet them on Sunday after ending Real Madrid's 9-match unbeaten streak. This result prompted a lot of reactions, including Zidane's, of course. He talked a lot about the game, and in the post-match conference he said that one of his worst performing players on the night, actively really, in Eden Hazard, is lacking confidence after the defeat against Athletic Bilbao. He said that he needs to recover confidence, play a great game or score a goal just to do something different. I mean, you're right, I agree with that. He needs to do something different and he needs to score. He says, we know what a great player he is and we need to be patient with him, and he's working hard. He said that the team is behind him and must give him time. The fans want to see the best performance and the best version of him, so he must be patient. We're sticking with him and really want him to step up. But today it wasn't just Eden Hazard. We're all in this together. He's right to say that, probably to boost the confidence of the player, but I don't think that the fans exactly can give him time after a year and a half at the club, pretty much. It is hard. It feels pretty really weird to be saying that, but certainly, Eden Hazard is a very good player, but that's still probably lacking confidence. He will find it somewhere down the line, hopefully when it matters for Real Madrid, which is the business end of the season, hopefully. From the Super Cup of Spain, of course, and to the Premier League, to Arsenal drawing goalless against Crystal Palace, ending the winning streak. Not exactly a streak. I mean, it's 3 matches in a row, pretty much nothing really big, but still, a winning streak is a winning streak. They drawn goalless, of course, against Crystal Palace. The surge up the table was breathed into life, of course, in the last couple of weeks. But the Crystal Palace, of course, side was on the night quite, better equipped to defeat Arsenal. Brendan Leno pulling a couple of saves, really. Crystal Palace playing so good, especially in the first half. Arsenal, for all the possession, all the stats, they didn't manage to do anything of notes, really, and it sucks for them, because that will bring them back to a negative mood that they won't get past pretty quickly. They want to forget those woes of the early season where people were talking about relegation for Arsenal, and they want to get a better thing going for them, and that draw is certainly not going to help them. Sticking in the Premier League, but with some statements. Paul Pogba have been told. The referees have been told to remind players of the need to maintain social distancing as much as possible during games and when celebrating the goals. The statements, of course, varied on this one. City's boss Pep Guardiola said it'd be impossible players to follow the Gunners because it is really weird. Speaking ahead of Man United's clash at Liverpool on Sunday, Pogba told Sky Sports, of course, he contracted COVID-19 last year. He said, you find another way. You find another way to celebrate and you find another way to be happy. That is his quote. He said, but the most important thing is the result. Obviously, there are rules and we have to respect that for the safety of everyone. He added, I did have that, but when I was... that was when I was at home. That's not the problem. As long as everyone is safe, that is the important thing. Now, my reaction to this is pretty clear. It is weird. You haven't. Football is a contact sport. You have in contact with the players on the pitch. You're touching them in every other shape or form. How you celebrate by hugging them or something like that, despite the fact that they tested, of course, they test before every game and they are in the bubble, quite frankly, and there are lockdown restrictions and what have you. So that is kind of a weird move, really. Frank Lampard also went on to defend the players, to celebrate in groups, because these protocols are really tough to implement. Frank Lampard, he said that footballers are doing everything that everyone else is being asked to do as well. Some people are being asked to work from home. Footballers are not. They cannot work from home, so they're taking themselves into an environment where they are potentially putting themselves in danger, and maybe the family they go home to, a pregnant wife, a grandparent, a parent, a brother, or a sister. So I think we have to understand that footballers are human and they are being asked to do their job. He says to understand the passion and understand football, the instinct that every fan has, it can bring out emotions, and to control the emotions is a fair ask, but to dictate emotions will probably be very difficult on the pitch. You should see players can control it. I hope they can, but the beautiful game we all love does bring emotions out on the pitch. But I want you to be clear about this, and he says the players are being asked to come to work and they're doing everything they can to toe the line. The Premier League are understood to have stepped up the attempts to enforce these sort of protocol in a bid to prevent football from being left to criticism, which is feared could lead to a change in the government policy whereby the league can be halted. Now, again, I will stress this again, this is a contact sports where players touch each other on a regular basis on the pitch. They train with each other, they're tested with each other, they're in the same bubble. If all of them are negative, why you would disallow them to celebrate in groups? It's still weird, really. But anyway. Elsewhere in Chelsea, of course, in the same interview, Lampard insisted that Fikayo Tomori absolutely has a long-term future with Chelsea, but admitted he could leave on loan during this month's transfer window. So I don't know, how do you explain the fact that he had a long-term future at Manchester City? I mean, we saw it happen to Timothy Fosu-Mensah. The guy also seemed to have a long ensuring future in the Man United squad, and now he's in Bayern Leverkusen. He has played 4 times this season only and is interesting AC Milan as well as a number of Premier League sides. But Lampard's side said any loan for the 23-year-old would be to ensure he returns to Stamford Bridge, adding he absolutely has a long-term future at this club. We'll see if and when he goes on loan. I mean, to be fair, when Frank Lampard himself doesn't have a long-term future at Chelsea and his long-term future isn't that insured, you cannot really go and say with plain chest saying that Fikayo Tomori has a long-term future at Chelsea. Some contract extension and some transfer talk now, and Ronaldo told Juve management that he is ready to extend his contract until 2023. Now, coming off the back of the statements of Juan Laporte yesterday, saying that he missed a chance on signing Ronaldo, I mean, that is quite good news for Juve, considering that, I don't know, some weird deals could happen when you see Cristiano going to Barcelona. It still could happen, really. Realistically, Cristiano Ronaldo isn't exactly the most loyal type of player, really, or the one that he would care about Real Madrid versus Barcelona as a rivalry, let's face it. Chelsea's longest-serving player, Lucas Piazon, joins Sporting Braga after 7 loan spells. He's a Chelsea player. I mean, he's been 10 years, count him, 10 years as a Chelsea player. And in those 10 years, he was loaned 7 times. He was signed in 2011, only eligible for a work permit in 2012, and then he made just 3 senior appearances for the Blues, and all were in 2012, in the year where they won the Champions League. And then, he played against Wolves. He played against Man United in both in League Cup games, a Premier League action, and 8-win victory over Aston Villa back then. And that is as good as life got for Piazon in Chelsea. Then loan spells at Malaga, Vitesse Arnhem in the Netherlands, Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany, Reading back in the league, in Championship and probably League One in England, Fulham as well, Chievo in Italy, and Rio Ave in Portugal, all during being a Chelsea player. But now the 26-year-old has finally made the permanent move away from West London. Lucas Pizzon is now a new permanent signing for Sporting Braga, but the Portuguese outfit announced that on their official website. He played, of course, this season for Rio Ave and has signed for the club until 2025. The club that is Sporting Braga. Finally, could we see something from him? Could he peak his career? We don't know. We're not sure, really. And finally, we close out with Luka Jovic from Real Madrid. Returns on loan to Eintracht Frankfurt, of course. He left Frankfurt for a €60 million deal in 2019, but has failed to reproduce the form he showed in Germany, scoring twice in 32 appearances for Los Blancos. That's pretty much the same number that Hazard scored, really. And also he has been, of course, having his own problems with Serbia, with the injuries, with not scoring goals, not starting usually ahead of Benzema in Real Madrid. Returning to Eintracht Frankfurt and to Germany probably would be the best course of action. But will he return as a regular starter, considering that Andre Silva is in a good form? But since they let Bas Dost go, this will be probably a good replacement for him. I mean, how far things have changed for Eintracht Frankfurt and for Luka Jovic, that we're saying he's going to be a replacement in a team where he was their best player by a big margin. That's it for the news. And now it's time to turn the attention to the weekend calendar, of course, to the previewing of the biggest action from Europe this weekend. Let's start from the Premier League, and certainly there's a lot of eyes on that for the matches on this weekend. And let's start. Wolves face West Brom, that is on Saturday, of course. West Ham, Burnley, Leeds United face Brighton, Fulham hosting Chelsea, and Leicester City hosting Southampton, all on Saturday. Then on Sunday, it's Aston Villa versus Everton, Sheffield United hosting Tottenham. Of course, the big game, Liverpool versus Manchester United, Manchester City, Crystal Palace, and it is Arsenal versus Newcastle on Monday at the Emirates. So this is a big week for the Premier League, and definitely a week where everybody's attention is going to be focused on Anfield, because it is indeed Liverpool versus Manchester United. Now, coming onto this game, the form of the two sides, the form of the two sides cannot be, any sort of, I almost said contrasted, but different. I think different, that's the word to really say here. Man United in the last 5 games, they lost once, but they won 4. However, for Liverpool, it is in the last 5 games, they lost once, yes, but they've drawn also twice, and they won twice in between. And those wins, and even the one win in the last 5, and aside from the Premier League, it's a cup game against Aston Villa in the FA Cup, where Aston Villa pretty much played with the under-23 guys, considering that the senior guys have been tested positive for COVID, and the training ground has been closed and what have you. So the form couldn't have been any different. I think this game is, it's not a title decider yet. We're still talking about, 19 fixtures. We're literally halfway through the season. But it is important for multiple considerations for both clubs. I think for Liverpool in particular, it is a chance to revamp their season. And I know that might sound atrocious or exaggerated, but they are, second on the table, and they're just 3 points behind Man United. And if they win, they go top. I know that. But the standards they set for themselves for the last couple of seasons can tell you easily that this game is different. And their season is different. And by Liverpool standards, this is not a good season. They, their record this season isn't exactly that great. 6 draws already this season. It's more than all of the games they drop points into. It's more than 6 draws this season. This is more than all of the games they didn't win last season. We're already at the halfway stage. So expect them to draw more games and to lose more games, quite frankly. So this is not going to be the same season. They will definitely not reach the 90 points mark that will, that they reached last season or the season prior. That is out of the question for me, and I don't think that any team in the Premier League would reach that. It's just the fact that their form this season has been dipping. The injuries, of course, have ravaged them. In terms of the defensive department, they were really ravaged. I mean, Joe Gomez, Trent Alexander-Arnold at a certain point, Virgil van Dijk, of course, for a long term until the end of the season. Some replacements as well were injured, and Matip, the new guy, Tsimikas, still didn't appear in the Premier League. We're waiting to see him in the Premier League, really. And, and also a couple of injuries in the midfield as well. So it's for a combination of reasons, Liverpool are not the same this season, and Jurgen Klopp also, starting to get a little bit distracted by other things, and namely being distracted by VAR and by penalty fiascos every week, which is something that you don't want to hear from a top professional manager, someone who won the Premier League, who won the Champions League, and someone who's coaching one of the biggest teams in the world. You don't really want to hear him talking about penalties a lot. And I understand that this might be mind games or trying to affect the psyche of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or United fans or the United players heading into the game, but I don't think that this should be the focus of Jurgen Klopp. The focus of Jurgen Klopp should be to get his side back on track. Now, this game for United means completely different things now. Now they are top of the table. Everybody's praising them. They're on cloud 9, almost literally. They leading the pack with 36 points. They still have everything to play for, really. This season, it's in their hands. They were outside of the Carabao Cup, yes, but they're still in the FA Cup. And speaking of the FA Cup, they will meet Liverpool again 1 week later. It will be at the Old Trafford on Sunday, 25th of January. So this game has a double meaning for them. Though this game in both ways, it is a game where they need to win to extend their lead at the top of the table, and at the same time is going to be a perfect study for what Liverpool are going to be doing ahead of the game at the FA Cup. So you don't tactically, the expectations tactically for this game is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer probably is going to unleash his traditional Solskjaer mode, which is sitting in the back pretty much and trying to play on the counter, knowing that Liverpool are going to be pressing them, knowing that the game is at Anfield, knowing that the Liverpool will try and score early, because that is going to give them momentum, because in the last couple of games where they've drawn and a couple of points and then they lost, they didn't manage to score early. That is what Liverpool need, scoring early, around 15 to 20 minutes early on, and they try to take the game by the scruff of their neck. That didn't happen in the last couple of games, and certainly didn't happen in the last couple of games in the Premier League, where they'd drawn against Newcastle and West Brom. I mean, West Brom, they scored early, but then they were ineffective, and then against Newcastle they couldn't do that, and of course they lost to Southampton. So with the injuries that again that's still happening, with the injuries of Jota as well, long term added to the list of defenders, and Naby Keita, you have no expectation for what Liverpool are going to be looking like. It's pretty much going to be Fabinho and one of the Williams. It's going to be Reece Williams or Nathaniel Phillips probably in the back, and it will be the usual deal in the midfield. But Liverpool's performance overall has really drastically this season. And sometimes they couldn't score, which is a weird thing to say, but for the attacking prowess that Liverpool possess, not scoring is a problem. And against a side like United that can pick you on the counter, and trust me when I say this, Liverpool have problems in their defence that United could exploit and pick up through counters, and they have the speedy players in Rashford and Greenwood, and they could start Cavani, and then you could use Martial, and with Bruno Fernandes behind them, this could be a recipe for disaster. This genuinely feels like the first time Man United could go at Anfield and say, we have a big chance of winning this game. Unlike the last couple of seasons, where they went to Anfield, they couldn't get points for all of their, for all the money. Now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, of course, insisted that, and everybody insists that this game isn't a title decider, but everybody knows that in the heart of hearts, United want this game to be a title decider, because this is a defining rivalry in English football and a defining game in the Premier League, and it should be a title-deciding game for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But now, good Liverpool, do Liverpool feel like underdogs heading into this? That is kind of a weird question to say. It almost feels like they are underdogs. It almost feels like they are, quite the, the disadvantaged team heading into this. But certainly, whatever's going to be happening, it's going to be an interesting game all around in the Premier League. But also, the remainder of the fixtures in the Premier League this week is also quite interesting, but never as important as Liverpool versus Manchester United. Moving on and to Spain's weekend now, of course, Barcelona and Real Madrid are not going to be in action because they already had their games played in this round, as they had the Super Cup to take care of course, and Barcelona managed to get to the final and Real didn't, against the same opponents that they faced in in that round, which both won. How different things were really for both Real Madrid and Barcelona. So for that is going to be Valladolid and Elche, Cadiz and Levante, Alaves on Sevilla. These are Saturday games. Getafe faces Huesca, Betis faces Celta Vigo, Villarreal faces Granada. This is on Sunday, and on Monday it will be Valencia versus Osasuna, and a golden opportunity really for Atletico Madrid to defeat Eibar and go 7 points on the top of the table with 2 games still in hand. Really, it will be a great opportunity for Atletico Madrid, to enlarge the gap on the top of the table and really prove that they are the number one contenders when it comes to winning the Liga title, considering Real Madrid are out of the Super Cup, considering Real Madrid, have dipping and ebbing and flowing in terms of form. Barcelona, the same thing, you could say, just a little bit better because they are racking at least a couple of wins in a row as of late. But for Atletico Madrid, again, it is the biggest of chances to to win and to go 7 points at the top of the table, to assert themselves as the La Liga leaders and maybe potential champion elect, really, if you ask me. A fixture against Eibar, it's not exactly that easy. In the last 5 fixtures and 5 games against Eibar, they only Atletico won twice and they drawn twice and they lost once, so it's not exactly that easy a fixture, but still, overall it looks like a potentially great chance to take a big lead over the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona at the top of the table of the Liga. Moving on and to the Serie A, and also Serie A has quite the interesting and enticing ties to look ahead to this weekend, and it starts already on today, on Friday. It's going to be Lazio versus Roma at the Stadio Olimpico. The Roma derby is going to be taking place, of course. This is a big game for both, Paulo Fonseca and Simone Inzaghi. For Roma, one of the sides that have been impressing me this season. They're not quite far from the top. It's just 6 points apart from Milan, and they have the chance to make it, temporarily joint second with Inter, whom against they drawn, of course, last week at the Olimpico as well. Big Lazio also, they want to get into those top 6 positions this week with a win against Roma. But this is a fixture, that in the last couple of matches, of course, ended in a draw. In the last couple of fixtures, the draws last season were incredibly entertaining, and you don't expect anything else than an entertaining match between the two sides. It's a shame, of course, that fans are not there to watch it. I'm going to be, of course, reviewing this match expectedly tonight, and will be, giving it more thoughts tomorrow on the podcast. The rest of the fixtures, of course, on Saturday is Bologna, Verona, Torino, Spezia, and Sampdoria, Udinese. Quick note, why they don't make some interesting fixtures for Saturday? Like, seriously, Serie A doesn't have that interesting of ties on Saturday. Like, unless one of the big boys plays, it's never a big match on Saturday. Like, don't give you a Juve Milan or a Juve Inter or a Juve Roma on Saturday. They don't do that for some reason. They want to keep everything on Sunday. But, who am I to disagree with them? Napoli versus Fiorentina kicks off Sunday action. Then you have Sassuolo hosting Parma, Crotone versus Benevento, Atalanta hosting Genoa, and Inter facing Juventus, of course, as Cagliari face Milan on Monday. So the focus, of course, expectedly will be on Inter versus Juventus, and more from a Juventus point of view. This is a game that they should win to keep the momentum going, to keep themselves, climbing up a little bit. A chance to go, a chance to go third really if Roma slip and drop points against Lazio with a win against Inter who need the win after they feel like they squandered what could have been, a potentially great 3 points against Roma last week away from home. I mean, leading away from home and then just caving in altogether is something that you don't exactly do, but if you're Antonio Conte, that's what happens. From Juventus, they just went through in the next round in the Cup. They really want to build momentum now with a couple of injuries they had in Dybala and McKennie. Now it's Pirlo's job to try and find a fitting formula to react quickly to those kinds of injuries as Dybala and McKennie started to become more important, especially I think Dybala starting to earn a little bit more confidence in himself as the games went on in the league, and certainly the game against Milan, where he had a terrific performance. But the injury just the game after against Sassuolo has to sting for them. From an Inter point of view, again, it's Conte. It's all or bust now. They just have the domestic competitions to play for. Doesn't have European fixtures to distract him. So every game is important for him, and every game matters really for Antonio Conte. As for Milan, of course, on Monday they face Cagliari, and certainly they would hope that this game ends in a draw because they will not, be able to deal with the pressure of Inter Milan, being just probably being joint top pretty much. With Milan, I thought they're 41 for some reason, but they're not. They are 40 points Milan at the top of the table, so it's Inter Milan with 37. So Roma could potentially go 3 points behind Milan, and there's a chance also that Juve could go 4 points behind AC Milan. Of course, this could all go up to smoke if Inter, Roma, and if Inter and Juventus draw, for example, and Roma lose, and this could give Milan the chance to go probably 6 or 7 points at the top of the table. So it depends really on the results. And again, for Inter versus Juventus, I think, in terms of who needs the victory more, it seems to be Inter, but Juventus are champions and they need to maintain their position. So again, whatever's going to be happening is going to be an interesting Sunday, and it's going to be an interesting to watch game. And rounding up our preview here, we go to the Bundesliga, and it's round 16 of matches in the German top flight division. And it starts with Union Berlin versus Bayern Leverkusen on Friday. For Bayern Leverkusen, of course, they would need to bounce back after these last couple of games for them, where they drawn, 1-1 against Werder Bremen, and lost, of course, a couple of games before that. Dipping seriously in form as of late, and certainly they're starting to missing the race altogether for the Bundesliga title. Bremen versus Augsburg starts the action on Saturday. It's Cologne versus Hertha Berlin. Wolfsburg facing Leipzig. That is an interesting fixture to look forward to. Leipzig with a chance to go top of the table if they win against Wolfsburg, but that is not going to be an easy task against the 6th placed in the Bundesliga, and a side that has been really, really good this season in Wolfsburg. Hoffenheim facing Arminia Bielefeld. Dortmund facing Mainz in a game that should be another confidence booster after the victory over Leipzig last week, 3-1 for Borussia Dortmund. Stuttgart hosting Borussia Mönchengladbach to finish the action on Saturday. This is a game where Gladbach probably should pick up 3 points. It will be never easy against Stuttgart. They're not far off them on the table, but it should be really, really interesting to watch, and Gladbach certainly would need this to climb up a little bit higher on the table. On Sunday, of course, it is Bayern versus Freiburg and Frankfurt versus Schalke. For Bayern, of course, this game has just took a completely different meaning now after what happened in the Cup against Holstein Kiel. The game against, this is a game against a side in Freiburg that are not necessarily run-of-the-mill club. They're 8th of the table, yes, but the fact that they're 8th does not justify really underestimating them by any way, shape or form. They are a really, really, really good side. They're starting to pick up some serious form as of late. Like it's not just the fact that they are good and that's it. They're picking form as of late. And they forced a couple of draws on the last couple of games against Bayern, really. They only lost once in the last 5, and their victories as well, they have been impressive. A 4-1 victory against Freiburg, against Hertha Berlin, a 3-1 win against Hoffenheim, and a 5-0 drubbing to Cologne, really. So this is not an easy game, and after what happened at the Cup again, there is no chance that Hansi Flick should underestimate this. Bayern Munich should win this game, and I mean, I probably must win this game, because depending on what happens, probably they won't be top of the table on Sunday. At least speaking, if Leipzig defeat Wolfsburg on Saturday. So this will be a must-win situation for Hansi Flick. And he knows that, because depending on what's going to happen, really, this game might be low-key, a season decider, like where the season is going to be heading. Like, are Bayern Munich going to be completely losing the plot, or the last 2 games against both Gladbach and Kiel are just blips in the radar and everything is going to go fine afterwards? So this game against Freiburg shouldn't be taken lightly. The side doesn't have, they're going to be missing, Martinez, they're going to be missing Gnabry, Kwasi is going to be for injury, Zirkzee is going to be missing for suspension. Also, there'll be some absentees for Freiburg, Schmid and Haberer, Chang-Hoon as well. But still, whatever the absentees are, whatever the injuries are, whatever the situation is, Bayern Munich must win this one if they are to just keep their confidence going and try and restore some of the brilliance that made them really feared almost by all people. And now everybody's like, Bayern are now lost the plot. This shouldn't be the case. Again, I'll be really, really surprised if Bayern lose 3 games in a row, or like do not get results in 3 games in a row anyway. Frankfurt versus Schalke is the last game, and for Schalke, of course, finally breaking the streak and winning a game, and winning it convincingly against Hoffenheim last week. Hopefully for them, this will be the start of something new in the Bundesliga. That's it for this episode. Of course, thank you for listening / watching. Like, share. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Follow us on social media. I'm at SolidPSP on Twitter, PitchSidePod on Instagram. You can listen to this on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform, and catch it later on at www.webreadsports.com. Hopefully you'd have a nice weekend of football, really an interesting weekend to look forward to. I was your boy, the HOD of the PSP. Until the next episode, I will be seeing you soon.